Right then. I was going to say good afternoon, but I'm wishing the day away, aren't I? So good morning, everyone. I'm not going to talk for too long, just because it's these guys you want to hear from, not from me. So in a second, I'll pass over to Louise in Springboard, and then after that, we'll have Kim at TCHC. I just want to say one thing while there's other people online as well, and that is really just to thank them both and their teams for the work and effort they've put in. Because whilst everyone's been dealing with COVID, and I'm more than aware that that's affected an enormous amount of the projects, I have to say that both these projects have also been affected by staff movement and restructuring. So I think that both the resilience and the invention that they've used in getting through is really worth pointing out. And I thank them both for that, because they've made my life much, much easier than it could have been. There's no doubt about that. So enough of me. Louise, let me hand over to you.
Okay, thank you. Hi, everyone. I'll just share my screen when I can. Sorry. Okay. Right, let's share. There you go. Okay, so this is actually, I think it might be the third or the fourth presentation that we've done with OTLA. And this year was, or last year when we started, it was kind of a continuation of what we'd previously done. And obviously, as I'm going to explain as we go on, we did get hit, obviously, with COVID, which stopped it a little bit. But basically, our project was trying to focus more again on learner-led activities, letting the learners take responsibility for what they wanted to learn, setting their own targets, but this time trying to make it more project-based with more outdoor activities, and obviously, you know, coming back from the recovery curriculum, as we called it, getting the learners back in face-to-face, and taking ownership for what they wanted to learn and setting their targets. A little bit about Springboard. If you don't know Springboard, we are quite a large regional training provider. We're a charity. We do vocational qualifications, apprenticeships, study program in adults, with a massive emphasis. We really do emphasise a lot on maths and English within the organisation. And we work with lots of unemployed people and young people from disadvantaged backgrounds, with the aim trying to get them into work. But they do all come from, particularly the young ones, multiple barriers to learning. So it's quite difficult to get them to engage at times, and particularly with maths and English. So we were looking, which is why I always wanted to be involved with OTLA, at something different to try and engage these learners, and particularly to start seeing a purpose for their maths and English, why they should be involved in maths and English, you know. And as you all know, that's not easy. So we kind of wanted to sort of, you know, really do something with these learners a little bit different. Because in order to succeed, they need to try and achieve their goals. You know, last time when we started doing learner-led, we continued with it in the last project, the year before. So we wanted to develop this time by, I said, doing more outdoor projects and making the learners think that they've got a project. And what kind of maths and English do you need to do in order to fulfill that project? And we hope that would motivate the learners, inspire them to attend, because if we can't get them to attend or to motivate them, how do we get them to start seeing the relevance of maths and English and start achieving, really, which is what we want them to do. So we wanted to focus this time working in collaboration more with the vocational tutors. And getting for the maths and English tutors to join in the vocational employability sessions mainly, you know, looking at it from a holistic approach of the learner's journey, you know, seeing their starting point from their initial assessments, their diagnostic assessments, and getting the learners and the tutors as well, the vocational tutors, to see that if you've got a level 1 learner, for their subject, what kind of things do they need to help that learner within their vocation? If they were, say, for example, level 1 English, what kind of things can they help them with as well? So we kind of put together, you know, working together on schemes of work in advance to try and get the learners to see going on into vocational areas, try and get them to develop into further education, going on to higher levels. So it kind of worked a little bit like that, where we would have a maths and English tutor who could deliver both in with the vocational tutor from 2 different locations, one in Hartlepool and one down the south, and then in South Tyneside, sort of further down the north, and doing it sort of like back-to-back projects. And have it more like community-based, getting the learners to do some litter picking, you know, go to the local beaches, and the maths and English staff would collaborate with the vocational staff. So when they were doing, say, for example, their theme might have been on community learning or might have been on healthy living, what kind of maths and English could be involved in that, and getting the learners to see it as a more of a whole approach as opposed to just thinking they're doing healthy living and then does maths come into that. It was making sure it was all just encompassed all together, which is what we wanted to try and do so the learners could see relevance. The course we introduced as well was P4P, which was called Preparation for Progression, which is basically like a foundation course for a lot of learners who would come in and not knowing what vocation they wanted to go into at the time, or quite low level. And it was mainly for level 1 and below learners who would do this course for the first 12 weeks initially, and then hopefully would be good enough then and have got sorted enough within their own personal circumstances often to be able to go into a vocational area. And as I said, we had monthly themes, getting the learners to sort of take ownership for what they wanted to do and attend sessions and see the relevance of their maths and English. So then hopefully they'll be able to go into a discrete session after the initial 12 weeks. We did manage to do some good activities while we could, planning nutritious meals in the kitchen and stuff. And in the past, vocational tutors would go off on their own and do healthy living and healthy eating and taking them up to, you know, a project where they would do some orienteering or whatever, but not really linking in as much maths and English, or not with a maths and English tutor. So this time, putting the two together to see if this could improve their participation and making them try and see the relevance behind why they should be doing maths and English. So some more activities that we did was sport. We were trying to get the learners to encourage democracy in graphs and winning votes, and they researched the venues and factors and discounts. And what we thought was really good was, at first when we said to the learners, right, okay, you're going to do voting on your favourite sport. Okay, what kind of maths and English would you have involved in that? And they just couldn't tell you. And then when they finally could tell you, and what kind of skills would you need to have to be able to do those things? You know, can you do percentages? Can you work out fractions in order to do that? Can you, you know, put a sentence together with adjectives, descriptive adjectives? And so we kind of built them up a little bit, so that eventually they could see, once they started doing projects, you know, what activities of maths and English and what skills did they need to be able to write down, that they need to be able to focus on. We did beach cleaning activities, went to Hampsley Forest, did some orienteering, were able to do a little barbecue there. Learners really enjoyed that, and they started to really enjoy what they were doing. We started to see some very slight changes within the project as the time went on, particularly from the vocational staff, where they actually could see how difficult it is to try and get maths and English into activities, and also how difficult it is to engage the learners and making sure that you're making it purposeful and relevant, but also embedding it at the level of the learner rather than just generically embedding, which is where we found our vocational staff would do at a level where everybody would do at a certain thing if they were going to put some percentages in, for example. But they started to learn that they needed to differentiate lower, and for some learners needed some extension activities within that same classroom. So it was really, we saw a lot of difference in the change and attitude from the vocational staff, and how much input they were given, and how much respect they were giving the maths and English tutors as well, as to how difficult that can be to make sure you're differentiating levels within a level, if you know what I mean. We were able to identify gaps in their maths and English, particularly as the time went on, and also tutors were able to see more easily after having support from maths and English staff how much support they can give when they're in their vocational sessions within maths and English as well, and trying to try and bridge that gap, particularly with an area we had of weakness or development in Ofsted, where vocational staff weren't embedding maths and English sufficiently enough within their vocational areas, particularly at the right levels for the learners. We've had some organisational changes due to the project. We've started to team up with an organisation called Youth Can. They're a network of youth clubs, community groups, and our learners are starting to actually get in touch with the people from there, which they would never do themselves. Really interested to want to collaborate with other places. Our attendance has improved by 20% from undertaking the project. People wanting to now go into their maths and English discrete sessions and have chosen what vocations they would like to go into now. And because if they don't, then they stay past the 12 weeks until they're ready. So we're finding a lot of learners have been ready within the 12 weeks or sometimes before that. Obviously, we did have some COVID barriers. The learners were eager to share their views and stuff like that, but they weren't that keen to do things online once we had to go back to online. So we did struggle a little bit there. But we did start to set up some sort of forums on Teams, but the learners weren't that keen. So we took over by having like a learner voice, where we tried to get the learners to do via sort of like WhatsApp chats, where they would sort of ring each other and become mentors for each other and have one-to-one chats to try and get them to engage once we had to go back online. Achievement rates and progression, which is what we're always looking at. We did want learners to become more confident and track their own progress and see the journey that they've been on. We wanted to improve their attendance, which is what I said. Did we achieve this? Well, it was difficult. COVID did force us to have to adapt back online. And this time we went more to sort of Google Classroom, which was more effective, but still struggled a little bit because some learners, particularly our more disadvantaged learners, didn't have IT. But we started to do some on-site training and we did more development of that, and we did see a pick up a little bit again. We had some case studies which you'll be able to see in our appendices from some of our learners and some of the things that they said and how much some of them found relevance to maths and English. Learner A, she understood why she had to do maths and English, and particularly if she wanted to get a job in childcare, she had to pass those level 2 qualifications. We saw an increase in her confidence and skills, and went into a discrete class. For another learner, they could see what it meant to be healthy and physically and really wanted to become more healthy, wanted to get involved in more community things, go outside, get some fresh air, be involved in projects which they weren't interested in before, some people. Another learner said that, they didn't know what they wanted to do when they first came to Springboard, but, after being on this project and embedding their maths and English, they really did feel that they became more confident now, and they wanted to go into health and social care. So we were quite pleased with that. Is it fair to say, did we achieve what we wanted to do? Well, the case studies are a small sample of what learners said. Some learners have become more motivated. Some learners we didn't make much difference with, but, that was less learners than what we did achieve. And I think if we had 10 learners in a group and 6 of them, embraced it, then, we really did feel as though we kind of made progress there. What we think went well, the tutors were definitely able to adapt really well to remote learning and embrace Google Classroom and could see the benefits of that and really develop and help learners who didn't engage in the first lockdown. We did improve the soft skills, which was great, and improved some learners' quality of life, taught them how to eat more healthily and their well-being and things like that. Our success rates from learners who've transferred from the preparation to employment into vocational qualifications, obviously because it's a year course, was great. We increased motivation. We did get some learners to really want to start to participate in the discrete classes and asking if they could go into those classes, which was really good. Even better if, well, COVID hadn't happened, and that would be great. But we didn't manage to complete some of the activities that we had planned in the beginning. We would love to have spent more time on developing the topics over the 12 weeks. And if we were to get more learners to have seen the relevance of maths and English and target setting, because although some did embrace that, again, with some of the others, probably half, we would have to coerce them and help them to set their targets. But then again, they were quite low level learners. So overall, we were really pleased with how the year's gone, obviously with all the problems and barriers we've had, and we were able to make a difference with some of the learners, and definitely with all of the vocational tutors now, I would say, are much more on board with help and being collaborative, more of a collaborative approach with maths and English across the organisation. So that's really good. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? Oh, no.
Done them into
Absolutely beaten them into submission now.
Sorry, Louise. Can you share the projects? I missed the start of the presentation. Actually, maybe you mentioned them in the presentation. I'm just thinking that they might be suitable for what we call our VOC1 tutors, the ones who are with us for a year, who just dip in and out of various vocations with a view to making a change the following year. I don't normally teach them. I'm teaching them for the first time this year, and I think a project-based approach might be very, very suitable for them to keep them engaged throughout the full course of a year.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, one thing that I didn't say, I forgot to say, this is kind of like learners who would come out of here, go into a vocation, if they sort of didn't meet the needs of the criteria of the vocation, they went back on to this project, because maybe if they weren't participating in sessions, particularly with their maths and English, so they knew that when they went into the maths and English sessions, they really had to knuckle down, attend, really take it seriously, participate. And if we saw bad behaviour, for example, they would come back out and go into the projects because they needed to have some more development. And that kind of worked quite well, because we want learners to see it was a privilege for them to have to go into a vocation. So if you were going into your warehouse, which is what you wanted to do as part of warehousing, it's really important that you have to learn all these soft skills and also participate and behave better than you might have done in school, for example, in order to maintain and keep your position on that course. And that kind of was a completely different approach to what we've done in the past in previous years, and that worked really well. So that might help you with your learners, perhaps.
Yeah, so sounds good. I mean, I suppose it's just an extended version of what you've done to the learners who are on this VOC 1 year. They don't know what they want to do. They're real low-level learners, and the idea is that you develop the skills, the soft skills, and have a taste of various vocational areas to make a choice for the second year going forward.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
It would be fair to say as well that, because obviously that is a whistle-stop tour, as all these are, that the learners, you're asking there, Gareth, but the learners really had a say in the activities to a certain extent as well, didn't they?
Yeah.
There was, discussions and they were led in certain directions, and obviously COVID scuppered probably half the activities that you wanted to do, and you had to be quite inventive with the new ones. But things built from other things, and the one that strikes me was the beach clear up that then going into recycling and communication with recycling plants and all the rest of it. So one activity often led on to a second activity, as a sort of natural progression from the conversations. Perhaps this is slightly cruel, but I think that kind of comes out more out of necessity in conversations with the learners as it was going on, rather than being pre-planned, because everything was getting stopped and started again because of COVID. So the silver lining in that is that the learners kind of things progressed, and they could see that part. So I think what Gareth's saying there about using project-led approach is that you kind of got to go with the flow a little bit as well. Yeah, that's a massive factor, Paul, giving learners agency, which will obviously have a link to engagement and motivation. Fully agree.
Just ask, Louise, did any of your staff have any first school training or anything like that?
Well, no, not really. The thing is, you see, because we collaborate with the vocational staff, a lot of our vocational employability staff, which is what they were at first, they kind of have experience in that area. So we had somebody who, one of our tutors is ex-military, so he kind of knows lots of things like that, and obviously the healthy and the well-being and stuff like that. He was really good at those things, so he had qualifications in those areas. So their expertise linked with our expertise, was really invaluable. And I think going forward, it's going to be really good, because no disrespect to vocational tutors, but a lot of the time, they would say, how can you possibly have in maths and English 10 learners when we've got 20? It's crazy. But now they understand, because you might have 10 learners, but as we all know, 10 level 2 learners, the huge differentiation and gaps in learning between those 10 is massive. Plus what they need to learn and how hard it is, they kind of have a lot more appreciation, I think, for how hard it is for what they do in maths and English, and how they don't kind of get the respect, because the learners don't come to Springboard to do maths and English, they come to do warehousing and motor vehicle, and particularly the practical qualifications, they're not as academically focused. So it was kind of like getting the tutors to collaborate with maths and English finally, to try and see if we can sort of like crack it, and hopefully we're on the right track now.
No, that's brilliant. Thank you, Louise. I'm trying to do something similar next year, because I managed maths and English in construction and motor vehicle, and we learned from the online learning that our kids just weren't engaging with online because they're practical kids. So we're trying to bring in something very similar to this for next academic year. So that's really good. It's lovely to hear this presentation. Thank you, Louise.
Thank you.
Can I just add about that, as somebody who's read all the stuff you've written up, and what came across to me really clearly was how you'd woven in that thing. You just mentioned the word democracy once just in the presentation here. That whole thing about getting your learners to engage by making them feel part of the process comes across really strongly in your written piece. And I think that was the thing I took away, actually, as the strongest thing, along with all this other lovely stuff you're doing, that getting the learners to feel part of it all was really key.
Yeah, and I think in the beginning, it's like what I was saying, you kind of start off, and when you say, right, okay, so what projects would we like to do? It's just like 15 blank faces looking back at you, set your own targets. What? Yes, you've all been there, haven't we? But then as time went on, and I kept saying to the tutors, just keep going, by the end, they wanted to pick they picked the beach, and they wanted to pick the collaborating with UCAN, and I was absolutely flabbergasted, because Hartlepool, which is probably one of our most deprived areas, and now learners are the least engaged of all of our centres, and it's them that are doing that, and they keep asking us, and some of them actually didn't want to go into their discrete classes because they wanted to do this. So now what I want for Springboard to do is to pass that on into discrete classes and do a lot more project-led stuff in discrete, and not just in with the vocation, because you want it to be a little bit more fun, and telling the teachers that, what, I know it's level 2 and you think it's just got to be totally focused on exams and preparation and stuff, but it doesn't, because then if they won't engage and they won't attend, you'll never get achieved. So it's changing their mindset a little bit, which is what we've done over the last couple of years with OTLA, and I see a massive difference in the maths and English tutors as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Louise. That's super.
I'll stop sharing that now. Sorry, I'm just trying to stop sharing my screen. Don't know
I'll let you do that for a second.
Okay. Can't seem to do that at the minute. Sorry. For some reason it won't let me stop sharing the screen.
Gail, is it set up? But if Kim starts sharing his, it will just take over?
Maybe, because normally it'll say stop sharing and it's not letting me. New share, hold on. See if I can. No, it's just saying new share. If you try and share that.
I'm gonna see if I can stop you sharing.
Oh, there you go.
Then open it back up.
There, I think I've done it. Have I done it?
Well done, Mrs.
Yeah, I've done it. It's gone off.
Well done.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. I will pass smoothly on now to Kim, I can see they're waiting. If you're ready to share, Kim.
Thank you, Paul. Nicole, who is was my partner in the project, she's going to be delivering the presentation today. So I'm going to hand over to Nicole.
Apologies, Nicole.
You're on mute. That's it.
I'm just going to try and share the screen. One moment. Hopefully that's what. No, not quite. Is that allowed it to share?
Not as of yet.
Oh, I don't know what's happened there. For some reason it just doesn't want to allow me. One moment.
It's just let's back up. I probably have your.
Yeah, it's telling me at the moment that it can't share for some reason.
Okay. Give me a second.
Okay.
I will share it. And
So you've got a copy of our PowerPoint, haven't you, Paul?
I have, yeah. Let's see, we should. Hopefully you're going to tell me this is right.
Yeah.
Excellent. So in true to recent form, you're just going to have to say next slide, please.
Okay, thank you. So I'm Nicole, I'm the Deputy Project Manager for this project, and we work with TCHC Group and All Trades Training Limited. And the aim of our project was to help learners and learning coaches to identify where maths is naturally embedded within the workplace. This is one of the areas of development identified by Ofsted during our last Ofsted inspection. Next slide, please. So TCHC and All Trades Training is an independent training company that run a variety of projects, including apprenticeships, which is the focus of this project. The driving force behind this project stemmed from comments made by Ofsted, which we needed to address. This project was a creative response to our Ofsted feedback, and we were looking for solutions and ways to be more effectively supporting our learners. So some of the comments that Ofsted made were learning coaches do not give as much attention to development of apprentices' mathematics skills, and as a result, apprentices are less confident in undertaking advanced mathematical problems in higher level apprenticeships. Leaders and managers needed to address that and ensure that apprentices develop good mathematical skills and use these skills effectively in their everyday work. Next slide, please. Maths embedding for apprenticeships, work-based learning sessions is not explicit, and this will often limit and sometimes be entirely forgotten. This will often result in some learners missing out on developing their core skills, which has a negative impact on our ability to meet the deadlines set for functional skills curriculum delivery. So the aim of this project was to help both the learning coaches and learners gain the skills to identify where maths is naturally embedded in the workplace and surrounding environments. In previous practice, our learning coaches would deliver a short 10-minute learning session, normally around one area of maths. And this was the learning coach's idea of how maths should be embedded within functional skills. And our goal was to change this mindset practice and help the learning coaches to understand how maths could be used in practical ways. And in order to do this, we decided that we should actively include the learners in producing resources, make resources where learners could identify maths embedding, and enable learners to show evidence of occupational competency. Next slide, please. Initially, our approach to this project was to work with the health and social care learners and in supporting them in identifying where maths naturally occurs within the workplace. We also wanted to support the managers within the workplace to understand where maths embedding was and how they could support the learners by setting them tasks where math is naturally occurring. Next slide, please. We wanted to also undertake a series of training sessions with our own learning coaches so that they could be confident in supporting the learners, not only in the production of videos, but also on how to identify different types of maths being used within tasks. And we also wanted the learners to lead the video production to give them more ownership of their learning. The impact of COVID-19 meant that we had to look at other areas of business because health and social care wasn't no longer a viable option. We decided to look at warehousing as an alternative. Next slide, please. So we had to revise our approach. And in doing so, we wanted to look at the warehousing, and to support our learning coaches, we organised training sessions for them and looked at learning criteria and where maths naturally occurred within this. After establishing where maths could be embedded, the learning coaches then took this back to their sessions with the learners, and learning coaches use these sessions with learners to go through daily activities and identify maths within their learning. Next slide, please. So this is a video of one of our initial videos that were developed by a learner. Videos are silent, and what the learner would do is look at this video with their learning coach and look at what's being done and identify the maths that has been embedded within this. Okay, you can stop the video there, Paul. Thank you. From that video, we then moved on and developed our ideas, and this is the next video and what we're going to be using from now on. Oh.
Right, doesn't seem to want to play at the minute. Let's try that again. Apologies, let's just...
That's all right, don't worry. I think if you go back and then forward again. Oh, there we go. So this is another warehousing task, looking at wrapping a pallet. And we decided to use short videos, particularly in 2 to 3 minutes in length, as this is something that is more viable for the learner and learning coaches to identify maths being embedded within the task. It also gives the opportunity for the learning coaches to also look at the practice of the apprentice, and they can then identify and help them and say, or correct them on how to do a task as well. And then if you skip towards the end of the video, there, I think, yeah, if you play it from there, please.
Oh,
Oh, never mind.
yeah, I'm not sure I can do that. Let's just try again.
Okay, yeah, thank you. So then we got the questions to develop to help embed the math. So for instance, this question here, a roll of pallet wrap is 400 millimeters by 250 meters. So then they've got to then work out how much pallet wrap is needed, giving the information there. So this is how our videos will develop, and with questions of maths embedding, looking at the tasks that they are doing within their job role. Next slide, please. So we have noticed a change in the approach to teaching maths since we started this project. And by involving the quality team, we have delivered CPD sessions for our learning coaches around how to identify maths embedding during everyday tasks that the apprentice completes. Next slide. And this has prompted a shift from the tutors and is more cooperative in sessions where learners have been given input into the type of resources that they feel would make maths more explicit to their everyday work tasks. And it's also led to the learning coaches devising their own functional skills type problem scenarios that mirror the type of questions that would come up in the exam. And the scenarios are all relevant to the learner and their workplace. Next slide, please. So this is an example of a question that a learning coach has come up with to be able to help them. Next slide, please. So at the moment, we have 6 videos that have currently been produced, which are being used to support the learners with their apprenticeship and also our learning coaches with their CPD. This is helping the managers within the learner's workplace as they are teaching the employers not only maths, but how to problem solve. Managers have said that their employees are now able to spot potential issues during tasks rather than wait until everything is completed before a problem is found. Next slide, please. We've also got collaboration of professionals throughout the company. And this has helped us to ensure that all the teaching and learning is of a high standard and meets the requirements of TCHC and the awarding bodies. Working on this project has brought the different teams closer together. And a good example of this has been when a member of the quality team worked with the learning coaches to identify how maths has been embedded. And our apprenticeship team is now working much closer with our functional skills tutors, which has enabled them to tap into different resources, and it's helped to support themselves and the learners themselves. And then more evidence of this is instead of teaching standalone math sessions, the learners was incorporated within the teaching for the qualification standard. And the videos have a twofold approach, with one being to identify when math is naturally occurring, but also they can have a professional discussion with the learning coaches and learners around the content of the video and gather evidence that the standards are being met for the qualification. Next slide, please. And these are some quotes that we've had from some of the learning coaches and our IQA team. So having the videos will also help visual learners understand maths by relating it to their job role. And the combination of videos and scenario-based questions will aid the learner to identify relevant maths-based problems and work to use their wider skills to solve problems and develop critical thinking skills. Next slide, please. So what have we learned from this project? Unless you have a genuine interest in maths, then it's difficult to get motivated. By interlinking maths with everyday tasks completed within the warehouse, both the learner and manager have started to see the relevance of the teaching of maths and problem-solving skills. The videos that have been produced reflect on the learning and where maths is embedded, and it's led us to look at other sectors we would like to look at in the future, including health and social care and business administration. And that's the end of our presentation. Has anyone got any questions that Kim and I will gladly answer?
Just while people are mulling that over, I think one of the things that, and I suppose in many ways it's one of the smaller things, but it for me really jumped out because you had so many kind of setbacks with the COVID and where you could film and where you couldn't film and all the rest of it, was when you had learners starting to identify maths they were doing before it was discussed. You know, where you had that scenario where they'd watched a video and they'd kind of been drawn out the maths from it, and then they'd gone back to the workplace and done something and were starting to identify that when they were using maths as a sort of natural progression, and you know, almost teaching themselves at that point. And I think that's huge. It's very tiny, but it's huge for me. I think, you know, just the fact that they are now, you know, one video on doing, you know, the palette meant that they, next time they were doing something completely different, they were actually recognizing the maths in it. Yeah, it's just that small step, but it's taken them a long way. Anybody got any questions? Go for it, Andy.
All right, if nobody else has. Yeah, I love the idea of the silent video, because too often the voiceover on a video just means learners aren't engaged. They're just massaged by the videos. It passes them by, so they don't have to get involved. And I'm just really interested in how you managed to set it up so that learners had the confidence to give their explanations as to what was happening.
Yeah, I think the way obviously we did the silent video because we had a couple initially to start with, and the learners were talking through what they did, and it was all task based. It was all, you know, I do this task, that task. So we thought, you know, that wasn't what we wanted. We wanted them to, as you said, take it away from the tasks they were doing and look at how they were, you know, how they were doing it in relation to maths. So we were getting them to produce the video, and then with the learning coach, sit down with the learning coach, and before the learning coach identified what the maths was, is actually getting the learner to watch the video and note down where they felt they were using maths.
Mm-hmm.
That was sort of our approach to it, rather than telling the learner what maths was being done. Yeah. Actually, say, drawing it out from the learner initially, getting them to identify where they were using maths within those videos.
Yeah, oh, that's grand. Yeah, so you're actually using it as a stimulus very much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
We have health and social care apprentices, and I can imagine what a curveball you had during the year, having to switch from that to the warehouse scenarios. But I just wondered if you got as far as thinking about the sorts of topics you would cover through the videos for that health and social care setting.
Yeah, we did it. We did initially. We did have a look at some things like obviously you got to be very careful with safeguarding in health and social care. You know, with the sorts of documents and things that you can video. So we was looking at the likes of, you know, medication, you know, ratios and things like that. Looking at temperature ranges. With thermometers, looking at weight charts as well. That was another thing we were looking at, and we was getting the learners to actually gather information about residents and putting those into graphs and pie charts and working out percentages of one thing against another. So we had made some inroads. But then basically the healthcare partner we was working with said no one's allowed in. We call, you know, even staff could be in, but they would be doing their job and nothing else. So that's why we had to sort of change tack rather quickly.
Lovely. Okay. Thank you very much, Kim and Nicole.